Welcome to your in-depth weekly astrology overview and zodiac forecast for week commencing the 10th of February. I'm going to share with you some standout details to look out for, then the event chart on screen. Then I'm going to go through the week frame by frame to give you a detailed view of what we can all expect collectively before going through each of the 12 signs from Aries to Pisces, which you can relate to in terms of your ascendant, sun or the moon. I'm astrologer Patrick Arundell. Thank you so much for joining me and all your support and interactions. If you've yet to sub, please help the channel to thrive by doing so, but also clicking the bell notification symbol. I've launched a new website. Please visit that at www.patrickarundell.com. It is a work in progress, but through to the end of February, if you order your personal horoscope package, you can get that at 50% off to celebrate this event. The old website was 21 years old, so this is a big shift. If you would like to work with me directly, I've launched a new video service. You can have a video reading for your year ahead, ask 2 questions, or for your solar return if your birthday's upcoming. Please see the links below for those. So this week begins with the energy of the Mercury cazimi at the very end of last week, still cresting. Mercury is the planet of communication and precision, but loves being in the host of Aquarius. Aquarius energy is about the network, the group, the long-term plan, our higher ideals. It's asking us to elevate our thinking and communication. But that link with the sun means that the sun provides extra warmth and resonance. They also link brilliantly to Chiron, the so-called wounded healer. And this week, because Mercury and the sun are pretty close together, through to when the change of Mercury to Pisces on Friday occurs, suggests that we could have some very important dialogue about who we can relate to and collaborate with. But there also could be a challenge in that department with the full moon, but I'll share more of that shortly. Also, this is a week when some kind of karmic connection around an alliance, it doesn't have to be romantic, it could be professional or in a friendship, can build up and it could get stronger over the next 2 or 3 months. So on the screen now, I'm showing the event chart. The big takeout, you can see the sun and Mercury. They're still in that conjunction. They're still applying to Chiron. Chiron in Aries is very much about our identity. If we have not felt particularly seen amongst a group of people or even in a close romantic relationship, I feel that the full moon midweek is going to see us be much more outspoken about saying what we need. But initially there is an opportunity, but we can't just think it, we have to feel it. I want you to be aware of the moon. The moon may be at home in Cancer, but it's very close to the turbulent, potentially turbulent Mars in its retrograde and in its full in Cancer. And that could make us much more prickly and triggered than usual. So however much we're talking about something, trying to see the big picture, it is important to be in touch with the feelings of it too. Now, for some months, Saturn and Uranus have been in an aggravating right angle. Now that started to stretch out from the middle of January, but this week, as we go into this week, the gap is even greater. We're now up to, it's about just over 7 degrees. So the more limiting influence of Saturn can decline this week, which is a really good thing. Just also be mindful of Pluto and Venus. They're going to forge 3 connections in a sextile. The first peaked at the end of last week. We have it again at the start of this week in terms of within 3 degrees, but then again in March and April. And that suggests that some kind of significant connection or collaboration or romance could build up for certain people. But that brings us to the detail of this week, because at the heart of it we do have that full moon. A full moon in Leo annually is just a reminder to stay in touch with our individual hopes. Leo is a very charismatic and warm sign, but it can be a little bit more egotistical, whereas the position of the sun is in the sign of the collective. But the sun's not strong in Aquarius, it's actually detrimented. So in some ways we could encounter someone who wants to hog the limelight, and that might not work for some kind of group dynamic. But also it may be a reminder that if we have been a little bit absorbed with some kind of big picture stuff, there may be something that we need to keep an eye on for ourselves. For example, our romance. And the key to that lunation this week is the erratic energies of Uranus, the maverick, which of course is the modern ruler of the sign of Aquarius. And that intersects both the position of the moon and the sun almost exactly. So we have a T-square. So Uranus in Taurus is not at its best, as we found out painfully in recent years. A repetition of when it first moved into Taurus in the mid-1930s. So we've seen a lot of intensity and a lot of disruption and a lot of increasing cost. The sign of Taurus is about money, but it's also about our values, our self-worth and stability. So a question could come up this week around a love relationship or a friendship or even a long-term plan or a creative venture. Do we really feel that we're getting what we need to validate ourselves out of that situation? And because Uranus can be about freedom and higher truths, if it feels that something isn't as we would like, it could see us make a sudden move in order to get what we feel we need. So some kind of disruption is possible this week and over the next 2 weeks. But also, I would say that because Uranus in house 2 can be about money and the 5th house can be about speculation, we could find ourselves much more impulsive about spending money, particularly if we're not feeling completely fulfilled. And I also believe that there could be some uncertainty financially on the wider markets, whether it's cryptocurrencies, whether it's stocks, whether it's the cost of borrowing, which has just come down in the UK, but that is because of very slow growth, which is not such a great thing, and we have had a huge amount of extra taxation. So there's a lot of extra cost that's being loaded into everyone's life. So as much as interest rates dropping down might stimulate the mortgage market to some degree, it's still very tough out there. And of course, the new presidential approach is much more direct in confronting perhaps competitors, and that in itself does create some uncertainties. But by the end of this week, whatever happens, Mercury moving into Pisces, where it is in its detriment, is a reminder really that whatever happens in life and however much we talk about things, ultimately we need to reflect on what they truly mean. And the second half of February is going to be a very Piscean phase. Not least, next week the Sun moves on the 18th into the sign of Pisces, and Mars is going to end its retrograde on the 24th in Cancer. So more water energies coming in from the end of this week. But we do get a chance this week to think about the big picture, think about our connections, and as I mentioned, a very special connection is possible. But ironically, on the polar end of the scale, I feel there could be a need to actually break free from something that isn't working very well. So the truth of connections is going to come under the cosmic microscope in a big way this week. Please stay with me as I go through each of the 12 zodiac signs. People ask, what should they watch? If you know your natal chart well, but particularly your house overlay degrees, and therefore where the big outer planets would be in your chart in terms of transits, definitely ascendant. If you're less sure about your astrology, do take advantage of that special offer. It's a great package, it's great value, and will give you a huge amount of insights. But for us all, the sun is always the core of who we are, and the moon is very much about that emotional reflection. So So Aries, commencing the 10th of February forecast, suggests if you have been waiting for something to be done in terms of your domestic sphere, perhaps a tradesperson to come in and apply their skills, but it hasn't happened this year so far, you could be feeling particularly frustrated as this week begins, because you're very much in the mood with that combination of the Sun and Mercury to get into your future plans. So if there's something in the here and now that feels delayed, that can be irritating. Maybe it's the completion of a property purchase, sale or lease. Maybe it's to do with some decoration. Those kind of issues may have just been a little unsettling. And because the moon's so close to your ruler at the start of this week, I just feel that that can be more obvious to you. But this is a week when you do have an opportunity to think about your social situation. One of the things I would say to you is that you're probably going to find it difficult to keep all of the people happy all of the time, because the full moon is a call to action, really, to link up with people, to be more interactive and social. But because Venus in your sign is giving you extra radiance, don't be surprised if more people want to spend time with you. But Pluto's in that part of your chart along with the Sun and Mercury, which is making you much more mindful of your values. And the type of people that you're drawn to at the moment, it won't necessarily just be because they're entertaining, fun, stimulating. It may be because there's some deeper reason that you feel a connection, a deeper purpose. And I think that's something that really could come up this week in quite a strong way. But if your finances have felt a little bit up and down over the last few years, it's not a surprise with Uranus in house 2. But it's a bit like the World card in the tarot. As much as Uranus in the second house can create expenses, it can also suddenly create opportunities. And perhaps there's something in your talent bank that you're not quite using as much as you could. And this full moon may ask you to think again about how you can use those skills and experiences in a fresh way, Uranus, innovative way, and that can then feed into your future. But it may require you to just assert your talents a little stronger. But by the end of the week, with Mercury moving into your 12th house, there is going to be a change of gear in the second half of this month, and it is potentially going to be quite a profound time. You may find yourself hugely nostalgic. Perhaps if you haven't heard from a friend for some while, or there was someone that you were very connected to, but circumstances have changed, whether it's where you live, children, looking after elderly parents, you may feel that the yearning to reconnect to that person is something you really want to bring into your situation. So there could be some reunions in the second half of February for you. But with the North Node and Neptune still in a conjunction right through the spine of this week, I feel that that nostalgia could be a nostalgia for a reason. So there may be some kind of pull towards a particular person, and that could also be to do with Venus in your sign linking with Pluto. So don't be entirely surprised if a face from the past totally unexpectedly gets in touch with you. If you've yet to visit my new website, please do so at www.patrickarundell.com. You can also get your half price personal horoscope reports package through to the end of February. Please see the link below for more. So Taurus, your week commencing the 10th of February forecast begins with Mars in its retrograde in your third house, very close to the moon. Now, since early September, when Mars first initially moved into Cancer, you may have gone through a period of being a bit more impatient, or perhaps asserting how you feel in a more direct way. And that could happen right at the start of this week. But it could be with someone you work with, because the cluster of energy right at the top of your scope is very much about your connection to the world at large. And because the moon and Mars together can be a very emotional but triggering response, if something does happen at the start of this week where you do feel that once again they're changing what they want, there's some kind of new demand, it could make you feel a bit irritable, but try to stay strategic, because the full moon which occurs this week is going to be impacted very strongly by the restless Uranus in your sign. And that old classic dilemma for all of us of getting that just right work-life balance may be the scenario that you do need to grapple with immediately this week. But in a way, it may be because people professionally are actually seeing your qualities clearer, and therefore opportunities are being presented to you, not necessarily in a particularly obvious way. So someone could get in touch, there could be a conversation, there may be some scoping conversations, there could be some soundings and some market research. But for example, if you do feel that there's something seriously out of kilter, that full moon is asking you to take action to do something about it. And by the end of this week, as Mercury moves to join up with Saturn, Neptune and the North Node in your 11th house, it is spending more time connecting to people that you feel a sense of purpose with. So it's not necessarily just professionally. Now, it may be that in your work situation, there are people that you're very friendly with, and you could start to spend more time with them in the second half of February. But if you do spend time with people, I do feel it's because whether it's something tangible or something you can quite put your finger on, doesn't really matter. You could find yourself drawn towards certain people, and that journey is going to really step up as this week draws to a close. But the connection between your ruler Venus and Pluto, which reached the climax last week, is going to be repeated on the 21st of March and also the 6th of April. And that suggests, and you're getting that at the start of this week, that soundings that I spoke of could become something more significant, and that may be quite exciting for you professionally, but it may require you to shift in some ways, or it may be linked to someone you used to work with in the past, and that could surprise you. But by the end of this week, if you do feel that whatever demands you've got, you just want to meet up with a friend and have a bit of escapism, why not? If you've yet to visit my new website, please do so at www.patrickarundell.com. You can also get your half price personal horoscope reports package through to the end of February. Please see the link below for more. So Gemini, your week begins with your ruler very close to the sun, emerging from that cazimi. So for you, House 9, where Pluto is as well, very much about expansion, broadening your horizons, and therefore that can be to do with travel, which is very exciting. Also, Pluto forges a fantastic link to Venus, so you could feel really drawn towards a particular person, either spending time with them, visiting them, or communicating with them. But if you have thought about retraining, learning some more skills, doing some kind of online course, working hard on an idea that you've got and trying to reach more people with the core of what that's about, lots of opportunities this week. But what about that full moon? Well, it's a full moon that can see you in one way wanting to open up your world, but the third house, where the position of the moon is in Leo, is about our everyday world. And it's possible that someone close to you could resist your desire to be a bit more spontaneous and shake things up. Then again, maybe it's you that resists some kind of change. Or there's just going to be an incredible amount of communication and conversation, but some of it could be very surprising. And the reason for that is Uranus. Because Uranus, like the moon applying to Mars at the start of this week in Cancer brings a more emotional dimension to all this communicational energy. And because Uranus can also be about in your 12th house, the subconscious, maybe some of the conversations you have or thinking you have is influenced by a side of your personality or needs which may not be quite so obvious. So that means you could even surprise yourself. But the thing about this week is that if you do spend it having some jolly moments with people that you find stimulating, that's going to work well. And the more stimulating, the better. So if you've got friends who really have got a world view and are very well informed, that can really call out to you. But equally, if you end up having a conversation in the second half of this week with someone who you feel is not very well informed and tends to be rather dogmatic with it, that actually could stick in your craw. Now, by the end of this week, your ruler Mercury makes its way through to the part of your chart that's very much to do with your connection to the world. Saturn's been very powerful in that area for the last 2 years. Neptune and the North Node are currently, and that could mean that you do think, if you are considering some training, about a shift in your work world. And for some Geminis, that could be moving to a completely different sector. Maybe you're an absolute expert in what you do, but in some ways it's lost its allure. And Mercury can see you thinking about what you might do differently, but Mercury's not very happy in Pisces because the water of Pisces can disperse the logic and detachment that Mercury has. So if you didn't decide to talk to someone who is quite experienced, someone you knew that you could trust, I think that their advice actually could prove quite valuable. But if you have been finding work quite heavy going, there's been lots of extra responsibilities the last couple of years, with Uranus in the 12th house, that may have slowly but surely been just alerting you to the fact that something deep within you isn't quite fulfilled. And that could be what your thinking on this particular full moon is actually truly about. If you've yet to visit my new website, please do so at www.patrickarundell.com. You can also get your half price personal horoscope reports package through to the end of February. Please see the link below for more. Cancer, your week commencing the 10th of February forecast begins with that conjunction between the Sun and Mercury, asking you to take a look at your shared or long-term financial situation. With Pluto also in that sector aligning fabulously to Venus, there is a chance that some kind of offer, and it could be a professional offer, could come up for you, even if it doesn't happen this week. It could happen next month or April, which will be just the perfect thing for you. But it may require you to do some research. If you're more entrepreneurial, you've got to plan things meticulously. And because this week's full moon is very much about resources and getting the balance between the ins and outgoings, and Uranus is in a very unpredictable part of the mix, it's possible that you could have a complete about turn around that long-term plan. Because the long term is the Sun in Aquarius, the short term and perhaps the more impulsive energy is the full moon in Leo, but Uranus is in the part of your chart in between them that's very much to do with how it's going to be for that long term. So something may need realigning. The great news, however, is that once Mercury moves into Pisces towards the end of this week, you are going to have in the last 2 weeks of the month of February a great chance to expand your situation. But equally, the 8th house can be about where we're most devoted emotionally. It can be about the things we share, but it also can be about intimacy. Because Pluto's aligning so productively with Venus, if there is someone that you're involved with and it feels really good, the chances are you could take that next step in terms of sealing in the alliance between you in a much more profound way. But the 8th house can also be where things come to a close. So if something isn't working so well for you and you don't see it as being part of your long-term future, the chances are that you could find with this full moon that you do want to liberate yourself from something that doesn't feel particularly good. And Mercury moving into the 9th house can be very much about freedom. Now, Saturn's been in that area for 2 years. Saturn, we wouldn't think, is about freedom, but if you have felt really constrained in a situation, Mercury moving there, followed by the Sun on the 18th, and also Mars going direct in your sign on the 24th, can all be green lights to break free of something that just isn't working anymore. So it does depend on your unique circumstances. This week holds opportunities, but it also could see something changing as well. If you've yet to visit my new website, please do so at www.patrickarundell.com. You can also get your half price personal horoscope reports package through to the end of February. Please see the link below for more. So Leo, your week commencing the 10th of February forecast is very much about relationships. It begins with that conjunction between the Sun and Mercury, which is terrific to be a bit more detached and objective in a way, because Mercury in Aquarius asks us to think about things but be more logical, and because it's in your 7th house, that's where we connect to people. Even if you're encountering someone who has a different view of things, it helps you to be less inclined to see it that it's a challenge to you. In fact, Venus in your 9th house, the sector of truth, linked to Pluto in the 7th house, along with the Sun and Mercury, suggests that a very powerful connection may have forged recently for you, can forge this week, but equally could forge next month or April, because the connection between Venus and of Pluto will be repeated 3 times, and it can be very karmic. So someone you encounter, maybe through a travel, it could be through an interest or a club, it could be someone who comes from a completely different background, and being open to that possibility is where Mercury can help you. It's just that when this week begins, the moon's applying to Mars in a very tender part of your scope, and as you come into the week, despite the benefits of the Mercury cazimi, something could be getting under your skin. And of course we have the full moon in your sign on Wednesday, and that's essentially saying to you, if something isn't working out around a relationship matter, perhaps you need to find a way to realign. But because Uranus is applying to both the position of the moon and also the Sun, and that's in the part of your chart to do with control, power, or perhaps work, maybe those issues could be a what's coming up. That said, maybe it's someone you need to work with that you are finding difficult to rub along with. And Uranus in the 10th house could push you in some ways to think about an alternative way of earning your living if the politics around this situation are bad enough. So by the end of the week and Mercury's move into the 8th house, that's a sector of deep thought, but it also can be a sector of where things profoundly change. You've got Saturn there, it's been there for 2 years, also Neptune and the North Node. You could be drawn towards pushing something towards a close that may not seem obvious to other people, but something could just pull you in that direction if you don't feel that tipping point between what you need and what you're prepared to give, either personally or professionally, is being met. And that full moon is going to shine a light on that in a very powerful way. If you've yet to visit my new website, please do so at www.patrickarundell.com. You can also get your half price personal horoscope reports package through to the end of February. Please see the link below for more. So Virgo, your week commencing the 10th of February forecast sees your ruler Mercury right at the heart of the celestial action. At the start of the week, it's asking you in the conjunction with the Sun to put those energies of analysis that you have in spades to good use by looking at a situation that may have got slightly out of kilter. That will come up to the boil on the back of the full moon at the heart of the week. This is particularly so if you have been feeling a bit drained or a bit run down. If you're someone who's very conscientious, which is often the case with Virgo people, giving to a situation constantly may have slowly but surely eroded some of your inner resources. So it's a great chance with that Cazimi to reflect on some important changes you could make, whether it is to diet, exercise, whether it is to rest, your sleep hygiene. And if you're not really enjoying your work and there is a lot of office politics, that could be another area where you could think about making some changes. And the planet of change, Pluto, is going to be pushing you to keep engaging with this process for many years to come. But that at the start of this week links to the planet of money, but also the planet which can be in the 8th house for you of passion. There may be something that you could feel passionate about that is to do with transformation. And one of the things that I feel come up for me with Venus, maybe in squeezing a bit more out of your resources by finding some angles that you may not have seen so far, perhaps because a situation has evolved or changed. It could be a product that you have some kind of savings or investments around. By reanalyzing it, you could find a way to tease out more value. But the 8th house can, of course, also be to do with deep devotion. And it is entirely possible that if you work in an environment where you are really validated and appreciated, there could be some recognition. But if you're not feeling that recognition is heading your way, a much more militant part of your nature could come out at the heart of this week with the full moon. And the reason for that is the moon's in its most tender part of its journey, but the planet of rebelliousness, Uranus, is in the part of your chart to do with being more open, but also more challenging when things aren't quite as they could be. Now, you can be extremely conscientious. So one of the scenarios may be where you keep doing that much more to support a situation, but someone in your team or group is actually not doing as much as they should do. And that can really stick in your craw. But equally, someone could be critical of your performance but not tell you. So there may be some energies that aren't obvious, just washing around in the dark. The great news, however, is that on Friday, your ruler Mercury moves into your opposite sign. And even if there are some tensions at the start of this week, internal, or things are a bit brittle with someone you're working with, the lines of communication can open up. Saturn has been asking some questions the last couple of years, and it may have seen you working hard, particularly on a close relationship. But Mercury moving into the sign of Pisces can just help you to be a bit more detached if people have made a criticism or see things differently, and that actually can be a very helpful energy. But if you feel that your emotional spark, your psychological energy is very, very low, it may be because you're being too sacrificing, and that's where you need to realign things. So self-care and looking after your personal needs, but also being perhaps a little bit more virtuous. And that's hard to say to the most virtuous zodiac sign. But if there are some things that you could be a little bit more disciplined around, this is a good week to impose that. If you've yet to visit my new website, please do so at www.patrickarundell.com. You can also get your half-price personal horoscope reports package through to the end of February. Please see the link below for more. So Libra, your week commencing the 10th of February forecast gives you a great opportunity to realign, particularly around giving yourself permission to have some enjoyment and fun. The big picture is that Saturn, the planet of responsibilities, has been in a part of your chart the last 2 years, which is very much about practical obligations, whether it has been in the domestic sphere, whether it has been to do with your job, your energy probably has been quite low at times. And in some ways, being so conscientious means that perhaps you haven't always given yourself permission to just have that aforementioned fun. So this is a chance, particularly on the back of the full moon, to do something much more off the cuff, to meet up with people, to enjoy some mixing and mingling. If you recall last week, Venus, your ruler, moved into your opposite sign, which was a trigger to just give you that desire to connect to people. But it's not going to be connections for nothing, because the link to Pluto, which peaked late last week, is still in the mix at the start of this week. So there could be someone who really speaks your kind of language. Could it be love language? Well, for some Librans, yes. For others, it may be more a language of being able to collaborate, go out and have that pleasurable time together and feel safe and at ease with one another. But that link between Venus and Pluto could lead to a fated connection. If it hasn't already, you still have a window of opportunity on the 21st of March and the 6th of May. Do pencil those in your diary. But pushing back or rebalancing, always important to you. The demands that have been so heavy the last couple of years could also make you much more mindful of anyone, even in a playful way, who wants too much from you. So, for example, if there is someone you like and perhaps you've been out on a few dates, but they're wanting almost too much too quickly, the fact that Uranus, the planet of freedom, is in a square with this full moon could see you just slow things down. You won't want to sacrifice your independence too quickly. Then again, it could be in a friendship situation where you just feel that the demands of a group of people are too much and you need to do more for you. So in a way, Uranus acts as a kind of monitor between the two polarities of your situation, where you mix with others, the moon in Leo, or what you need to do for you, the Sun and Mercury and Venus in your own sign. Now, by the end of the week, Mercury does shift, makes an ingress into Pisces. So it is going to catch up with Saturn. Saturn will continue to be powerful all through this year and into the first couple of months of 2026, as far as those responsibilities and obligations are concerned. But of course, he is moving on the 26th of May through to the end of August into your sector of relationships. And Venus, particularly going through its retrograde, could bring a surprise around the connection together with that link to Pluto. And do know that as much as Saturn can bring limitation, it can also bring rewards, and perhaps the reward of someone who's really worthy of you. But if you have been just a little bit too obliging and caught up too much in life's practicalities, this is definitely a week to go out and have some genuine fun. If you've yet to visit my new website, please do so at www.patrickarundell.com. You can also get your half-price personal horoscope reports package through to the end of February. Please see the link below for more. So Scorpio, your week commencing the 10th of February forecast begins with a lineup of energy in House 4. The 4th house, beginning with the IC, so in terms of solar astrology, that's 0 degrees Aquarius, is where we can like to withdraw, to rest, to contemplate. The 1st house, that begins at 0 degrees Scorpio, in terms of solar astrology, is where we're setting out on a new journey. Now with Pluto, your modern ruler, having gone through Capricorn for such a long period of time, that was a very interactive period for you and may have been very exciting at times. So taking a little bit of a breather and reflecting on things is what the theme of your chart is about at the present time. But the intriguing thing is that Mercury, the communicator, and its bind with the Sun at the start of this week could in some ways provoke you to have a conversation about that you may be reluctant to do, because Mercury in the 4th house can see us circulate ideas or emotions in our thoughts, but find it much more difficult to actually express them. And if you are a particularly private or rather reserved Scorpio, that part of your nature could be quite strongly emphasized. But Venus supports Pluto, saying that if you can try to look at things practically in terms of all sorts of relationships, but particularly those people right at the heart of your world, that's going to be a smart move. But there's no doubt about it, the full moon at the heart of this week does suggest that some worldly demands, perhaps to do with your work, your profession, or perhaps the needs of other people, perhaps older relatives, could in some ways have an impact on your need to have that little bit of a period of just having that pause. And because of the electric energy of Uranus, you might surprise yourself by how much you can cut through trying to realign the two demands and being quite outspoken, or someone could be quite outspoken to you. That said, by the end of the week, Mercury moves out of Aquarius, because although Mercury really loves being in Aquarius, for you the fourth house is trickier for Mercury because the emotion of the fourth house dissolves its ability to be more rational. So when it moves into a water sign, ironically for you, that brings some fire into the equation. So Mercury moving into Pisces on Friday can see you feel more outgoing, perhaps a little less introspective, less affected by the demands that seem to be competing for your attention. For example, you could be offered a job, but it may be a job that makes it difficult to travel to, or perhaps there's support that you have to provide for people in your emotional life that makes it difficult for you to be as ambitious as you would like. So these are the kind of themes that can be there on the full moon. But by the end of the week, Mercury elevates your spirits. Saturn has been asking some serious questions the last couple of years around your social and romantic world, but the last part of February could really see quite an uplift for you, particularly as your traditional ruler Mars will end its retrograde on the 24th. But before then, Mars is actually forging a very positive link to Uranus. So although Uranus can afflict this full moon by bringing some energy into the open around a relationship, business or personal, in a very quick way, there is the chance to get things going more progressively, and I think you're going to feel more social as this month goes on too. If you've yet to visit my new website, please do so at www.patrickarundell.com. You can also get your half price personal horoscope reports package through to the end of February. Please see the link below for more. So Sagittarius, your week commencing the 10th of February forecast begins in an effervescent, sparkling way with the conjunction between the Sun and Mercury. You've been sharing a lot of information or ideas recently, but that can just be superpowered right at the start of this week. But it doesn't mean to say that you're just going to be having light and breezy chats, which you can, nothing wrong with that. You may be sharing something that's profoundly important to you. It may also be around someone you're drawn to, because Pluto, along with the Sun and Mercury in your third house, is for many years to come going to make you much more conscious of the power of language. And because that's still in touch with Venus, the relator, at the start of this week, it could mean a very important conversation is going to take place. Now for you, Venus in the fifth house can also be to do with speculation. And Venus can be about money. So it may be that you're also examining information linked to a potential investment, and that may be technology based. But at the heart of this week, we do have that intense full moon. And for you, I feel that the energy at the start of the week, which pushes you to be more active physically, perhaps even travel somewhere, whether it's to walk, run, cycle, get in the car, do something off the cuff, that could be challenged at the heart of this week by the full moon because of the role of Uranus. Now, a Leo full moon for you works great because it's emphasizing your ninth house. So your instincts is to broaden your life, be more independent, and do things perhaps more spontaneously. The third house energy is about those everyday conversations we have. And if you're wanting, for example, to share some ideas and someone around you is a bit resistant to them, that full moon could cause a few tensions. But this one is particularly prone to tension because Uranus T-squares both positions. So you could start the week off with a real desire to get something done. It may be something you want to write, it might be something you want to share with someone, it may be someone you want to spend time with. You may have greater connection with people immediately around you, but then there may be obligations and responsibilities that crowd the space, and that could prove to be a bit intense. But by the end of the week, Mercury moves into the sign of Pisces. But Saturn has asked some quite tough questions of you the last couple of years, may have brought a more leadened energy to anything to do with where you live, who you live with, or your own emotional health. But Mercury moving there gives you the chance just to catch your breath, because I feel that it is going to be a very busy week, very helter-skelter. Don't be surprised if text messages and emails are pinging constantly throughout this week, demanding your attention. And if you're juggling lots of different demands, that's when the potential for overwhelm can occur. But also, the Sun and Mercury initially and Pluto are also encouraging you to tell people what you need. And as the week draws to a close, then if you need to just draw a breath, have a little bit of personal space for yourself, you can do that, but particularly in the second half of February. If you've yet to visit my new website, please do so at www.patrickarundell.com. You can also get your half price personal horoscope reports package through to the end of February. Please see the link below for more. Capricorn, your week commencing the 10th of February forecast could see you appraising your financial situation at the start of this week, or just in terms of your overall situation, the foundations. If your foundations are really steady, it's something you can take great satisfaction from. But Pluto's alignment with Venus, which peaked late last week, is still in place at the start of this week. And Venus in your fourth house could see you thinking carefully about an artifact that's been in your family for many years. You might think if it doesn't serve any practical purpose and you're not attached to it, particularly sentimentally, that you might want to sell it off. And you could actually make a good return. But equally, you can look at it afresh and see its intrinsic design qualities, stepping outside the modern sort of view of it and think, do you know, that is beautifully crafted. So seeing the value in things is something that you can do very much about a possession. But you can also do that about people. But it may be a person that has a more emotional dimension in your life as much as anything else. So it might not necessarily be someone who's particularly sociable, might not be someone who's a bunch of laughs or romantic, but you may just see just how much that person means to you, and that actually can be quite a spot. But you know, as the week goes on, we do have the full moon on Wednesday. That parks the moon opposite the sun, which for you goes across your 8th and 2nd house axis, which is about the ins and outs in the daily finance, the sun in Aquarius, but longer term costs in terms of the moon in Leo, and also shared finance. Now, if you're in a relationship, a romantic relationship, and you do have a bit of a different approach to your partner, perhaps you're cautious, they're more inclined to splash it out, or conversely, that different approach to resources could come up strongly because of the role of Uranus. Uranus is the planet of rebelliousness, but it's also the planet of higher truths. The 5th house is about joy, and sometimes, you know, especially for a sign like yours, which can be innately sensible, it's actually a really good thing to do something innately spontaneous. Have that treat, Go for that big ticket item. Not be confined so much by being the steady Eddie of the zodiac. So some temptation to use whatever money you've got for an instant hit in terms of an impulse buy could show up this week, or you could find yourself talking to someone you're close to, trying to get a better understanding of how you see things differently. Or at the start of the week, you can very shrewdly appraise any potential situation for its value. But by the end of the week, as Mercury moves on Friday into Pisces, whatever you've been realizing or digesting that's quite earthy, you can now start to think about it in a more agile way. And the second half of February is going to be a much more interactive time for you. You can connect to people in your locality, you can enjoy much more sparkling exchanges. But this period of the year is very much about making sure that you feel safe with the foundations. And if you do, that's when this particular full moon could push you or trigger a desire to be a little bit in the moment and not be so fearful. But if your finances have been really challenged, I think what Uranus can do is perhaps make you feel a little bit trapped, which would be totally understandable. But keep going, because Pluto is going to transform your financial situation in the years to come. It might just be in a slightly different way to what you might have thought would be the case not that long ago. If you've yet to visit my new website, please do so at www.patrickarundell.com. You can also get your half price personal horoscope reports package through to the end of February. Please see the link below for more. Aquarius, your week commencing the 10th of February forecast has a very vibrant set of energies right at the top of the week, which can be very supportive to your individual ideas. If you've been working on a new project, an enterprise or a hobby which really helps you to dazzle people with your individual flair, that can be heightened by the Sun's connection to Mercury. But also Pluto is linking so well to Venus. So it's not just your ideas, it's the way you express them to others. And there's something about that has a conviction that other people can find very hard to resist. Really lovely stuff. If you think back to the new moon in Aquarius of the 29th of January, that also was a leg up along the journey of creativity, as was when the Sun arrived in Aquarius on the 20th and linked with Pluto on the 21st of January. So there's been quite a few staging posts helping you to build up momentum. What's not to like? Well, of course, we had the new moon. This week we have the full moon. Someone may feel that you've been too single-minded in pursuing the hobby, interest, job, perhaps even relationship that's important to you, and they may feel a little bit excluded. Now, they may have a point, but sometimes in life, if we really want to seize the golden prize, we really have to be single-minded. And it's possible that you've actually had to miss out on something. With Uranus being in your 4th house over the last few years, maybe your home and emotional life hasn't been quite as supportive as it could be. And with Uranus forging an erratic energy to the full moon, maybe someone is suddenly going to let you know that they're not best pleased. But just know that with Mercury moving out of your sign on Friday into Pisces, that can start to see you realize the benefits of all that hard work. Saturn has been providing quite the headwind around resources and income the last couple of years. By the end of February, you're going to see a payback for all the sacrifice. If you've really worked at readapting or realigning your approach, perhaps by getting a different job, or if you have your own business, trying some different and fresh approaches, the rewards can come by the end of February 2025. So keep going, but this can be a very, very exciting week for you. If you've yet to visit my new website, please do so at www.patrickarundell.com. You can also get your half price personal horoscope reports package through to the end of February. Please see the link below for more. So Pisces, your week commencing the 10th of February forecast begins with a very powerful connection between the Sun and Mercury, which can just intensify something that's been going on for the last few weeks. A desire to perhaps retreat a little bit, but do some deep thinking. You may have found yourself very much connected to your past. Mutable signs like yours are said to be much more nostalgic, and you may have been unpicking some of the events of your life, trying to understand some of the history of it and get some new insights and perspectives. For some Pisces people, you may have even been having some counselling or working with a life coach, trying to tap in to some of your resources that lay deep within you. And you know, that can pay off. It may have started to pay off towards the end of last week. There may have been promising signs, some research you've done, whether it is marketing research or just understanding something in terms of an overall perspective. And as Pluto continues to link to Venus, the money planet in your second house, some good news financially could come in, but it may be linked to an old contact or an experience that you've had that's still just as relevant today, but could be repackaged in some kind of fresher manner. Equally, the combination of all the 12th house energy recently may have seen you somewhat reclusive. And in some ways, this may be because work has been a little bit stressful, particularly if you have anything to do with technology or customer service job, because of the energy that comes from the electricity of Uranus in your third house. And at the heart of this week, midweek, if you feel that it's more give than get, and it is having somewhat of an impact on your nervous system, the level of adrenaline that you have, if you're feeling an excess, there's part of you that may want to, in some ways, escape. Now, if you could get some leave, if you are feeling, the demands of others quite keenly, good for you. But I want you to know that all the prepping and understanding and thinking that you've been doing recently is going to see a major shift, because by Friday, Mercury emerges into your sign. Now, if you know your technical astrology, you'll know that Mercury is not at its absolute best in the sign of Pisces, because Mercury likes to be detached, it likes to be logical, and it likes precision. Yours is a water sign, so you bring a more emotional dimension. But actually, Mercury moving into your own sign is going to see you start to come out from this deep cocoon that may have really been quite profound recently. But if you do work somewhere where it's not very supportive, it's not very acknowledging, it's not very nurturing, you may find yourself actually wanting to start looking at other options. And the second half of February can be extremely dynamic for you, particularly once Mars goes direct on the 24th. Obviously, the Sun moving to join up with Mercury, Saturn, the North Node, and Neptune on the 18th will help. But then you have a new moon on the 28th. So even if you have felt quite marooned, a little bit low in spirits or vitality, or even a bit kind of overwhelmed by the sheer demands of life, know that you're getting back on the front foot. Saturn has been teaching you over the last couple of years that you can't do everything. You still need to prioritize, but a much more interactive and energized second half of February awaits. But this is a week when there are some delicate strands you still need to work through, but you could see some kind of financial nugget within the whole process. If you've yet to visit my new website, please do so at www.patrickarundell.com. You can also get your half price personal horoscope reports package through to the end of February. Please see the link below for more.